Hey, I'm Joe, and today on Next Level Bullshit, we're going to look at the Fourth Amendment and why it practically means nothing. On November 15th, John David Livingston was shot and killed in a confrontation after he initially refused to let a sheriff's deputy into his home. At 3:40 a.m., Deputy Nicholas Cahagas knocked on John's trailer door. We don't know why, but he did at 3:40 a.m. According to the roommate, Clayton Carroll, John refused to allow the deputy inside the house because he didn't have a warrant. The deputy didn't like all the backtalk. Suddenly, John is an extremist, talking all that constitutional nonsense. The deputy then kicked open the door. They then sprayed mace in his face and begun to tase the unarmed father of three. When Livingston attempted to remove the taser from the hands of the officer who was shocking him, the deputies executed him, claiming he got a hold of their weapon. Did his request for a search warrant really constitute reasonable suspicion? I don't know. At this time, the facts are very limited. Harnett County Sheriff's Department has placed the deputy on administrative leave while the investigation is taking place. But where is the outrage in North Carolina? Shit, this barely made headlines. Now, let's take a moment and review the Fourth Amendment. It says, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized." Pretty clear. Now, have you ever heard of the Castle Doctrine? It's a legal doctrine that designates a person's house as a place in which that person has certain protections and immunities. As Sir Edward Coke wrote in 1628, "For a man's house is his castle, and each man's home is his safest refuge." This protects people from unreasonable searches, or if someone is attacked within his or her home, deadly force may be used as a defense. All pretty blatantly ignored by Harnett County Sheriff's Department. Radley Belko wrote Rise of the Warrior Cop, an expose of the militarization of the U.S. police force and deterioration of the Fourth Amendment and the Castle Doctrine. Since the 1960s, in response to a range of perceived threats, law enforcement agencies across the U.S. at every level of government has been blurring the line between police officer and soldier, driven by martial rhetoric and the availability of military-style equipment, from bayonets and M16 rifles to armored personnel carriers. American police forces have often adopted a mindset previously reserved for the battlefield. The war on drugs, and more recently, post-9/11 anti-terrorism efforts, have created a new figure on the U.S. scene, the warrior cop. Armed to the teeth, ready to deal harshly with targeted wrongdoers, and a growing threat to familiar American liberties. This book is excellent, packed with sources, and scary as fuck. Radley details extensively how the Fourth Amendment has completely eroded away. Some gaping exceptions began in 1963 with the landmark case Kerr v. California, the first case where the fruits of a warrantless search were ruled reasonable and allowed in a conviction. In 2003, U.S. v. Banks, the Supreme Court agrees 15 to 20 seconds is a reasonable amount of time for police to wait between announcing their presence and forcing entry. The whole point of announcing their presence is to avoid a violent encounter. Then we have Mueller v. Mina, 2005. Police detained a handcuffed woman at gunpoint for 3 hours while officers ransacked her house. A tenant in her home was a suspect in a shooting, but she wasn't. It was rapidly clear that the suspect wasn't around, yet the justices unanimously ruled that the police actions were reasonable under the Fourth Amendment. Don't even get me started on no-knock warrants. In America, land of the free. A no-knock warrant is a warrant issued by a judge, that allows law enforcement officers to enter a property without immediate prior notifications of the resident, such as by knocking or ringing a doorbell. It is issued under the belief that any evidence they hope to find can be destroyed during the time that police identify themselves and the time they secure the area, or in the event where there is a large perceived threat to officer safety during the execution of the warrant. And the issuance of these no-knock warrants isn't slowing down. No-knock raids are a popular tactic with more than 20,000 every year. That's 55 every day. And the stats are clear. These raids are far more dangerous to civilians than police. Wait, if law enforcement is saying crime is on the decline, why all the no-knock warrants? And if that didn't piss you off enough, in a survey of U.S. judges, 92% of judges said that police lie, at least some of the time. And 38% of judges said that they believe that police superiors encourage subordinates to lie in court. More than 50% of respondents believe that at least half of the time the prosecutor knows or has reason to know that police fabricate evidence. Militarization of our police force is a very real thing, and it's happening faster and faster. The latest attacks in Paris is probably going to result in less civil liberties and more police liberties, like fucking X-ray vans. And that is some next level bullshit. What do you think? Sound off in the comments section below. Now, before I read the comments, I want to do something different. Today I'm giving away 2 copies of Radley Belko's book, Rise of the Warrior Cop. All you have to do is share this video on Twitter. Be sure to tag at the NLBS to get credit for your share. I'll announce the winners on Twitter in a few days. Now for a reading of the comments. From our last video on politics, Zombie Horde writes, "These are the reasons I will no longer vote. These politicians all serve corporations, not the American people." That's what we've been saying all along. Anime Theory writes, "Sigh. This show has gone down the tubes. It has become a liberal mouthpiece." E&M writes, "Watching American politics from Canada is rather surreal. I'm starting to wonder if my American cousins have lost their goddamn mind. Hell, Trump is a narcissistic psychopath and he's leading the Republican polls. That by itself makes me wonder if I'm having a stroke and not reading the polls correctly." You're not having a stroke, you're reading it right. Trump is leading. Saki Karazu writes, "When I become supreme leader of the world, I'll make you the head of press secretary." Yes. Thovlin 420 writes, "What happened to the swear counter, Joe? Love the show, keep it up. Now that we're shooting at YouTube, I gotta watch my language a little bit more, so it just kinda seemed pointless." From our video about X-ray vans, Andy Legate writes, "Looking for cancer rates to jump up in NYC down the road. Great vid, by the way. Thanks. We actually think that in 10 years, people are going to start glowing." Jack Wolf 69 writes, "So the NYPD just says, fuck the 4th Amendment. Can someone please explain why people put New York on such a high pedestal?" 'Cause we got the pizza rat, dude. Come on. If you liked today's episode, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to stay updated, subscribe to our channel to be notified of all new releases. You can also follow us on Twitter at the NLBS. Now, we don't have an official Facebook, but you can follow me personally on Facebook at the Joski. Now, if you have an idea for a show, email me anytime at joe@nextlevelbullshit.com. And that's it for today. I'll see you next time.